This episode is brought to you by TaxAct. Don't do your taxes alone. Join TaxAct's National Admin Night. Admin nights are social gatherings for getting through your to-do list. So get ready for a night of fun, finding deductions, and filing taxes with TaxAct, where you can file your federal and state return for just $49 through April 8. Let's get together and get them over with. Visit taxact.com/admin-night for details.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
If you'd like to receive this podcast early and without ads, consider becoming a member of the DSR network. Listeners to this show can receive 25% off the membership price. In addition to an ad-free listening experience and early access, members receive bonus content for virtually all of our shows via our private member feed, enhanced show notes for selected podcasts, and an invitation to join the DSR Slack community. Visit thedsrnetwork.com/buy and enter code NOJOKE to receive 25% off. That's thedsrnetwork.com/buy and code NOJOKE. This offer is limited and will expire on Saturday, April 6th. So act now, and thank you very much for your support.
Welcome to The Secret Life of Cookies, where we try to solve the world's problems through the miracle of carbohydrates, one recipe at a time, with host Marissa Rothkopf and her dog, Bosco.
Hello and welcome to The Secret Life of Cookies today. My guest on the podcast is the award-winning cookbook author and editor, Matt Rodbard. He's here to talk about his newest cookbook and cultural deep dive. It's a book he co-wrote with author Dookie Hong. It's called Korea World. This podcast is probably best listened to on your way to your local grocery, or better yet, if you're really lucky, on your way to your local H Mart. That said, we do also talk about grocery stores, most specifically Trader Joe's in this episode, the darker side of Trader Joe's. It's definitely a discussion you don't want to miss. So thank you for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy the show. One little bit of housekeeping before we get going. All the recipes, including the espresso tonic that I make for this on this podcast, can be found on my Substack newsletter at marissarothkopf.substack.com. And you can support my work with a subscription for $5 a month. Or if that's not possible yet, you can also subscribe for free. And please, don't forget to join the Deep State Radio as a member for special perks. Either way, I am grateful for your support. Hello and welcome to Matt Rodbard, who is here. He is the editor-in-chief of TasteCooking.com. I think most of us just call it Taste. It is my favorite online cooking magazine. We call it a magazine. Let's call it a magazine. Shall we call it a magazine?
Let's call it a magazine. And thank you for making us your favorite. There are a lot of choices out there with food magazines, and I am absolutely honored and flattered that you call us your favorite.
It is absolutely my favorite. So, and it's very easy. And I would like to talk about later, after we've talked about the brilliant thing, which is your new cookbook, I would like to talk a little bit later about the Trader Joe's article that appeared, which is so wonderful. Not wonderful, but a great piece of journalism.
We'll just tease out and say it was wonderful that Adam Reiner worked so diligently on it. It was wonderful that we had all the founders go talk on the record. And it was wonderful that a lot of people read it. We had, I would say, 100,000 people read it yesterday alone. So that was a really big day.
Okay, so actually, let's start with that, because if 100,000 people were reading it by the time, let's make sure that 250,000 read it by the time we're done with this. There was and then we will absolutely get to talking about your cookbook, which I'm just going to show you here. This is a list of the things I wrote down that I just want to cook on a piece of paper, no less. And I know what I'm making for dinner, but we'll talk about that later. Tell me, there was an article Adam Reiner wrote about everyone's favorite grocery store and maybe something that they're doing that maybe isn't so nice. Can you give us the little bit of a deep dive on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Trader Joe's is a complex beast because I think we all have had really good experiences there at least once in our life, if not many times. Trader Joe's offers really affordably priced food, produce, dairy, snack foods from all over the world. And they do it in a way that's very fun. It's marketed very successfully. The people at the checkout are wearing, the Hawaiian shirts, and it has a real energy. Even if you aren't like excited to be at a grocery store, there's at least some place you're going to smile at a Trader Joe's. That's
Absolutely.
the context. It's a place that has really done a great job of building up this like equity of excitement and fun. The problem that we saw when we decided to work on this piece over 6 months ago, and I have to be honest, the piece was originally just focusing on how they do private label and how they actually do R&D around products. It was a pretty like mundane idea. But soon after Adam Reiner, and I'm glad we're saying his name a lot, he's the reporter on the piece, and Eliza Barbanel and I edited it. He soon found that there were founders who have had a much different experience with Trader Joe's. Mainly, there were many instances where founders would go into negotiations to have their product private labeled with Trader Joe's, meaning they would provide recipes, sourcing, even producing the products themselves, selling it to Trader Joe's at a price they agree on, and then Trader Joe's would slap their name on it and sell it. So they would go into negotiations in good faith and obviously wanting to grow their brand and make some revenue. And then they would stall when price became an issue, and the royalties and the way the cost structure was created. And many times, Trader Joe's would lowball their efforts. Would really give them an outrageously low price. They give them a one-time fee, no royalty on the product sold, and it was a price that would be unattainable. And oftentimes the founders would shut down the negotiations. Fine, that's capitalism. That's the way it goes. Problem is that many of these founders 6 months later, 12 months later, would find a product on the shelves of Trader Joe's is remarkably close to theirs. Remarkably close. And that's the problem. And the culture of the ripoff copycat culture at Trader Joe's is rampant. The white label, private label industry at large is not great. So, of course, we can talk about Wegmans. We could talk about Walmart. These problems exist. But it seems for us, it was important to focus on Trader Joe's because we had so many founders on the record speaking about their experience with Trader Joe's and also just the subtext of Trader Joe's being a happy place and not really being happy with founders.
No, and I got this sense that like founders would, Trader Joe's would be all nicely nice and say, here, let me try this. I really want to taste your product. And they would give them samples of the product. And then the negotiations would somehow stall. And then those products would end up on the shelves at Trader Joe's with some of the sort of things that made those ingredients special for like Brooklyn Deli and things like that. It made it clear that like, it wasn't just like, oh gosh, we all love achar. We like the way you do it.
And like in fact, it's a great example. And Chitra Agrawal, who I've had on my podcast, and really somebody I've really admired in the food world for years, the founder of Brooklyn Deli, found her achar sauce sold at Trader Joe's, and using a spelling that was their choice at Brooklyn Deli, that was a little bit of a non-traditional spelling. Trader Joe's copies their spelling, much of their branding, and ultimately what's inside is not the same. I think Brooklyn Deli does a much superior product, but still similar enough that it was really questionable.
Right. And I to me, as much as I love Trader Joe's, and it has that thing where it's like, oh my God, I have to go to the grocery again. But if I go to Trader Joe's, I get a little treat and I get a little this. And this is going to be more fun to have this jar of whatever. And while if I were Trader Joe's, I might argue that, I'm bringing achar to people who might not otherwise see it. And then they'll want to see yours when they go to another supermarket and they'll buy yours. That doesn't work for me.
It doesn't jive at all. And in fact, the idea that they would promote other products is unfounded. I mean, they're an 85% private label. They
Right.
aren't helping founders. I do have to acknowledge, and this is really important, grocery prices are escalating
Yes.
and inflation has caused this. And so it's more expensive than ever to be a consumer at the grocery store. So I acknowledge, like Trader Joe's, these rock bottom prices for products, it helps families, and that
Mhm.
is not a bad thing. So net, it's hard to say, like net positive. I'm not going to say that. I don't like the practice at Trader Joe's, but many people shop there, and we certainly were very diligent in creating a story that did not exclude this information, did not try to ignore that many people shop at Trader Joe's because it is affordable, and that is okay.
Absolutely. I thought that was such a wonderful balance to the story, which
Thank
probably
you.
is, adds to why Taste is one of my favorite online cooking magazines, because
Thank you.
it didn't just turn into like an angry SEO grabbing kind of cancel culture sort of article. It felt balanced, and it acknowledged why so many of us shop at Trader Joe's, and just made us much more mindful of the experience.
Yeah, and like I'm still torn. Like I love the way that they do peanut butter and peanut butter chocolate pretzels. Like those are really
Come
good.
on. Yes,
They're
exactly. Right.
amazing. And but my question to me, to myself, is like, was there a founder 20 years ago that had their own brand that Trader Joe's ripped off? And I feel
Mhm.
for that brand. So like I'm like conflicted about giving them money personally, because I just don't like, I don't trust that the products I'm buying, it has been stolen from somebody. So
Yeah, they also have they've had a couple issues lately, because of where they're doing business in the world and what the FDA standards are with food safety, which is probably something that should be maybe of a bigger concern to us, should also be of a large concern to us. So,
oh, for sure. I would actually say, if they're treating their founders this way, how do you think they're treating their customers? And
right.
like, what is in
Or
the
I mean,
products?
how are they treating the people who are producing this food for them? Right.
Exactly, and how, the customers, right, the production of the food. So it seems like if they're cutting corners with their distributors and there's purveyors and their founders, they're probably cutting corners at every level, and
Mhm.
that's a food safety issue.
Yeah, and that's a big issue. As if you're going to Trader Joe's and buying a bunch of bagged salads or something that was made, I mean, many of the products are made abroad, and that's sort of the wonder of it. I can buy, my bulking 18-year-old son some fettuccine alfredo that he can throw into a pan, and it comes from Italy, you know? So he feels almost fancy in the way that he's bulking up. But I don't know, you know, how everything is working out in factories that maybe don't come from a place like Italy that has better standards
Yeah,
for food production.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, all this conversation is what making me thirsty. You have written a cookbook. It's the third cookbook that of your creation, but this is the second, I would say, kind of in a series. Your first cookbook was called Koreatown, and this is Korea World.
Yeah,
And I, even before I make a recipe out of the cookbook, I have to say, what a beautiful, brilliant cookbook it is. We all know that most people read cookbooks instead of cook out of them. That's sort of like the strange statistic that comes out of cookbook land, cookbook
hmm,
publishing. Your book is this beautiful travelogue. It is wonderful, like insights into the different people who are cooking, everything from ancient techniques of like Buddhist, vegan cooking to someone out in San Francisco who's like redefining how to make Korean food. So
yeah,
it's wonderful, and every recipe. I said before we began, I have a list right here in front of me, and tonight, because remember I was talking about the kid who likes the fettuccine alfredo. His
yeah,
favorite food. He makes his own kimchi. He's that kid.
yeah.
So he, maybe
Love
you
it.
were like this in high school, but tonight might be dakdori oyakudan, but it might
Yeah,
also be the beefy soybean paste stew.
Yeah, I love the tenjan, beefy tenjan jjigae. I mean, to me, that's a first. I mean, let me back up and say thank you for taking the interest and really kind words for the book, and really we appreciate you um, giving it the look and understanding what we're trying to do, which is kind of rare in cookbooks. And what this book really attempts to do, and I think does it well, is make it a documentary project in cookbook form. One thing about our photos is we have 0 photo shoots in this cookbook. We didn't use a studio. We literally shot every single photo in on location. Literally, even the photo of the drink is on location. I mean, like there are literally so many people in this book, and we felt like we needed that because covering Korean food since our first book, Koreatown, in 2016, we found ourselves reporting on a culinary revolution, and we are like the first. I believe the first to cover this revolution in Korea in the English language. And so this book has been a long process of going to Korea many times, meeting Korean chefs there and here in the States, and really figuring out the most important recipes and stories to tell. So we feel this book really gets it in that way.
Absolutely. And I have to say, I mean, the highest compliment I could pay your book is that in the olden days when I would review cookbooks, I would get stacks of cookbooks sent to my house. It was glorious. Those were glorious days.
Yeah.
And nowadays, people just send you PDFs, which are great, but it's not the same thing. I'm willing to shell out my own money to pay for your cookbook. I couldn't pay you a higher compliment than
That's
that.
a really sweet thing, and we could certainly send you a copy. And I'd really love to. I'd love to send you my own writing inside of it, maybe my signature. But if you want to buy one and give it to a friend, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And I believe I do buy books myself, and I'm in the same delightful place where people send me physical copies.
Right.
But more PDFs. I don't like the PDFs.
I know it's hard, but it was a wonderful read. I'm going to make the espresso tonic. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it? It involves sitting in front of me. You can see if you look down here,
I love you have it.
I have some coffee. I've made this orange simple syrup with demerara sugar. And I've maybe had a little spoonful of it, and it tastes like a really lovely kind of liquid lollipop. And I've got some Fever Tree tonic water.
Yeah.
So what's a gal to do?
I love that you called this one out. It is so cool that you targeted this recipe, and I've got a lot to say about it.
So first things first, I put in the tonic water, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Put in the tonic water.
There was some warning about, oh my God, if you do it the wrong way, if you don't pour the coffee over a spoon, you will cause volcano. So then
I think that is a wise technique. So the story about that, and I give her credit in the head note, is that this recipe was aided by Ashley Rodriguez, who's an amazing journalist. She does the Boss Barista Substack. Writes a lot about labor in coffee and writes a lot about just like the coffee industry as a whole. So I wanted to ask her about this because when I have been to Korea many times over the past 2 years and 3 years, I have noticed that there is a really strong movement in coffee happening there. And this was not the case a decade ago, 15 years ago. It was very much Nespresso and push button machines. But now Japan gets a lot of credit for having a quality coffee scene. And I do think that Japan has great coffee, but Korea has better coffee. Absolutely, hands down. I've traveled in both countries. Really, really remarkable. And this drink comes from a cafe called Matt Cafe. And I found this drink to be one of my favorites in Seoul. And it's a version of an espresso tonic that you find everywhere, but I loved the orange syrup. I love the way that they use that. So it's inspired by them, but through Ashley. So yeah, what do you think? Like you got it there. Do you like tonic?
Yeah,
what do
I love tonic.
What do you think about it?
I want to drink it all summer long. It is so refreshing.
I'm glad you say that.
It's so delicious. It has such a nice flavor.
I'm glad it's a great like PM by the pool, or if you want to, have like a little lunch with wine and you want to pick people up at the end of it, even at the end of a meal, if you want to like have it at the end of a dinner if you're going to have to drive, or if you want to like
Right.
be a little pick me up and caffeine doesn't drive you crazy, it will be fine. But I just want to stress like this, coffee has a role in Korea world, which like most Korean cookbooks would never dare, I guess. I mean, it's not part of the canon of Korean food, but like this book is not about the canon. Our book about the canon is called Koreatown. We had over 100 recipes, traditional recipes. This book is about modern Korean food. And to us, we needed a coffee drink. We also have a recipe for pour over that is Perspec that we love. And we talk about coffee. This is a small little section. It's not like obviously a coffee book, but we wanted to have it in there.
There was so much. How did you decide like the balance between like, I mean, the change in Korean cooking in the United States and to balance it out with the change in cooking in Korea?
It's a bit of a transfer of energy between the two countries. And it's a really great question, astute question, because what we really wanted to see were two things. First, what is happening in Korea? Because we fully believe in the modern scene, because we fully believe that trends that are in the modern scene in Korea will find themselves to America. And I have some examples. I actually have some predictions too. I just was in Korea in January working on a magazine article, and I have some things to reveal. On the flip side, I really feel that what's happening in America is important, in that Koreatown is not in a certain area in cities like LA and New York, where 32nd Street or like Olympic and Wilshire, those were like the Koreatowns. They've like Korean food has expanded.
Yes.
You know, in New York, it's Flatiron has its own Korean world, like with Kokoduk and Coat, and they've got, you know, the hand hospitality restaurants. Hojokban are downtown more, and in LA, downtown LA has places like Baru and Yangban, who are both in the book. And I feel that's a big movement in America, in that it's not like a town, which is why we intentionally made it the book Korea World. We're not trying to say it's physically in a certain area, because to be honest, and Pete Wells will agree because he's written about this, Korean food is like the biggest food movement writ large. It's not just an ethnic food movement, so to speak. It's more of a food movement.
I see it around me. I mean, I live in New Jersey. Yeah. I can go up to Edgewater. I can go to Hackensack. I can go to Parsippany and get great Korean food in,
oh my gosh,
like large Korean enclaves.
Fort Lee,
right? Edgewater, Fort Lee, right up there.
Yeah, so good.
But I literally can walk 6 minutes up the street, and there's a Korean restaurant in my delightful suburban town.
That's so. What's it called? It's in Montclair.
Yeah, and it's called the place at the corner. No, that's not its name.
It's all right.
It's delicious, and but it's like, you know, that's how I get my son to walk the dog, is to say, sure, you can go and have food from there if you walk the dog to there. It works.
Yeah,
it's the best bribery that's happened, and it's wonderful to have it right there. Post office, coffee shop, and the Korean restaurant.
Coriander, is that it?
That's exactly what it is. Thank you.
Coriander. I had to do a little fact check on I'm at the luxury. You're in your kitchen cooking. I'm in front of my computer Googling, and it's cool because I don't know about coriander, but it's a great example of how, you know, industrious Korean Americans, you know, young Korean American chefs who've worked in restaurants that weren't Korean have decided to open their own businesses. We tell this story throughout the book. It's super important. And Dookie and I really wanted to, Dookie Hong, my colleague and really good buddy who we wrote together. I have to obviously say his name in this interview. I should have said
sorry,
sooner.
I didn't mention it earlier.
It's okay. No, and Dookie and I have written together for a decade, and really we see this all the time where, you know, Korean Americans who have worked in restaurants like, you know, Italian restaurants or Mexican restaurants or at John George are now opening Korean restaurants. And that's part of this narrative.
Mi familia's more fun at Walt Disney World. Like mi papa, he's super serious. But since he met Goofy, he's been laughing all day. Or my sister. I never thought she'd try out the fast rides, but Space Mountain was her favorite. And me, I didn't think anything could feel so special.
The memories made at Walt Disney World Resort. That's pura magia.
It's also, you do also go from a sort of soups to nuts sort of focus on food in Korea World, and where want to start the recipe. I want to start with how the discussion to get this in the book was, you have Korean Airlines bibimbap recipe with a gochujang sauce that's supposed to be extra fatty, and that is why it went straight to my list, because I'm like, I may not make that bibimbap, but I'm certainly going to make a fatty gochujang.
Well, let's talk about this recipe, and I just made it for like a fifth time this past weekend for some friends. So what we're doing there is we're channeling. If you have the opportunity to fly in Korean Airlines, not to Seoul, but wherever, you will often encounter one of the meal choices is bibimbap, which many people choose because it's fun. And I'm not going to say it's great bibimbap. They do use instant rice, which we actually call for in this recipe, which I think is fun. You can obviously use any rice.
Right.
But what is cool about that bibimbap is that it comes in a small, the gochujang, the gochujang sauce comes in a small tube. And to me and Dookie, we wanted to replicate that in a way that wasn't, because it's not gochujang. Like, that's the key. Because like gochujang comes in its own form, and that's a raw product. But what we have is a gochujang sauce, which has ground beef in it, which I think is super important. It's a roasted, caramelized gochujang with ground beef. And that's a change in this recipe from other bibimbap recipes where maybe the sauce is a little bit looser, but we definitely wanted this to be a unique bibimbap.
And definitely it is, without having to fly, which is nice too. And of course, like, airline food is not going to be the greatest thing that ever happened, but I also like the kind of the whimsy that you decided that it was worth recreating here, sort of as the experience.
Yeah. We had such a fun time thinking about ways to rethink Korean food and really have fun with it, but also really bring some modernity to it. And not make it be the traditional recipes that you're going to get in many of the other great books that have been published, including our own.
Yeah, and also let's go to dessert too, which is brilliant. And that's the one thing I wish I had had time to make this. But the like kind of chiffon cake in like that touches its cap to the banana milkshake.
Yeah,
the popular banana milkshake.
Such a cool recipe, and that comes from Elaine Lau, who is Dookie's business partner out in San Francisco. And really, it's kind of playing with the idea of banana milk, which if you go to Korea and go to convenience stores, AM/PM or any of the others, you're going to find small cartons of flavored milks. They're quite common. And, strawberry is a big one, chocolate is a big one. But honestly, the banana is a favorite of ours. It's always been our favorite. So this cake has bruleed bananas, and it's a chiffon cake. And I thought, man, this is amazing. If you're into making layer cakes and taking the time, this is a really smart recipe. I love this recipe.
Yeah, I hope to recreate it actually for my Substack, because I think people would really like it.
Love to see that.
There's a lot of little, like, I think sometimes people get overwhelmed sometimes with, especially if they're not like, didn't grow up in a Korean household or haven't sort of educated themselves on like the whys and wherefores of Korean food. And I wonder, like, where would you tell people to start? Like, what would be a good place to go in this cookbook?
I love the question. And it's such a reality when it comes to cooking foods that maybe we don't have at the tip of our tongue, right? And I think you have to like think about the barrier of entry, and certain recipes are way more challenging. Like, frankly, like doing your own kimbap, which is the traditional rice rolls. Like, I love that recipe and I've made them, but it takes some time and you need some special equipment, like a sushi roller.
Right.
But let's go back to butcher scrap tenjin jjigae, because I think that's a great one to start with. Because one thing about Korean food, which I think is super important when it comes to the tangs and jjigaes, those, soups and stews that are a really big part of the canon of Korean cuisine, which we certainly have covered in both of our books. These are quick soups.
Yeah.
We're not talking about 4 or 5 hour, long simmered chicken stock, or we're not talking about, a long sauce. These are like 15-minute stovetop single pot recipes. Start there.
Yeah. And it's like, it is, I mean, tonight it's Wednesday night. We're recording this on a Wednesday. It's pouring with rain, and what could be better? And the fact that it's like it's as fast as mac and cheese. I'm sorry, and just so much tastier.
Yeah, like that recipe in particular, it's typically made with a little bit of beef with zucchini, and then with tenjan, which is if you go to a Korean market or even any grocery store, it's the
Yeah.
brown container that carries the tenjan, which is a bean paste. We decided we were at a market in Seoul, and we were inspired by the restaurants above this meat market. And a lot of them had types of tenjanjjigae that was much meatier, much more robust, more of a main course. Because tenjanjjigae can be a breakfast food. It can be done as an after the barbecue meal. It's almost like a side or a quick lunch. For us, this is like a main course, and it's important to get boneless, short rib, boneless, New York strip, like kind of a little more higher fat content, and cut it into pieces. Use that as your base. Use it with tenjan. Roast down the tenjan with gochujang. And also, we use Korean radishes in this dish. And to me, there's nothing, truly nothing better than a beautifully braised Korean radish, daikon radish, in
Yeah.
like soy sauce and mirin and garlic and like the real foundational Korean flavors.
Yeah, I think what I'd love to have from you, and this is the editor in me, which is like, okay, and it's in your book, but the editor in me for my listeners is, okay, we're gonna create a little bit of a Korean pantry for
Oh,
people.
cool.
Okay, so what should I go and get?
Well, here's what you do. You actually open up your pantry and you look inside. Not trying to be cute here, to be honest. It's real. Because honestly, if you cooked anything from the modern world of cooking, which is more global than ever, NYT Cooking, for example, great resource, love what they're doing. There's going to be sesame oil. That's essential. There's going to be soy sauce or ganjang, which I like to use as a Korean word. There's going to be mirin, less common, but likely somewhere there, but maybe not there. You're going to have things like, I would say like garlic, scallions, things that like you have around your house. Like this isn't, the larder is pretty pared down. I would say like foundationally to buy a few things is key. And that's the jangs, which is gochujang and tenjan, the red and the brown.
The brown.
Buy both of those. Yeah.
And anybody who's out there, what do you mean by the red and the brown? Go either. I know places like Whole Foods have it, but I go to places like H Mart, and you will go to the shelf and you'll see these plastic boxes, and one is brown, one is red, and then there's also a green one.
And that's samjang. And honestly, I don't necessarily love the green one because we have 3 samjang recipes in this book, and we have a great one in the previous one. And you can make your own samjang. So that to me is like a condiment you put on the table. You can dip crudite in it. You can put meat in it. You can like use it as a condiment, as opposed to gochujang and tenjan. Those aren't really condiments. Those are more foundational sauces or ingredients. You have to do something with both of those. But samjang is its own thing. It's like a dipping sauce, and I love making it. We have a bunch of versions in our book.
Yeah, some really delicious looking versions. And you also have and I think the other thing that you did mention was the radish, and that's also, those things last for a little bit in your
definitely
in your refrigerator, and it's worth having like an outing to your local H Mart or whatever place near you has these sorts of has radish and has those other sauces, because it's really, or the foundational sauces.
Can I say one more product to maybe look for? And
you could say 3 more.
I think one thing we decided this book needed to include, which we didn't have in our first book, is maple syrup. Maple syrup is a plum syrup, and it's part of chung, which chungs are these like fruit syrups. And we have a couple recipes for chungs in the book. And making your own chung is really cool because it's giving you this condiment like simple syrup that can live in your fridge in like a little small container. And really, I think it adds acidity and brightness to cooking, and lots of different recipes that call for honey or even rice syrup, which I think we use both of them in our book.
Yeah.
But if you have your own either maple syrup, we have a kiwi version, you have strawberry, you can use a lot of different fruit. And it's like a fruit syrup. And I think Korean home cooking, which truly is the best, like better than any restaurant you're going to be at, is having a friend invite you over for a meal, because you're going to taste this kind of electricity that you don't get at restaurants with home cooked Korean food, and then using home cooked maple syrup or homemade maple syrup. To me, that is part of like cooking Korean at home and using it in like even a bibimbap sauce or a bokkeumbap sauce, like a fried rice sauce, and substituting maple syrup for honey is key.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful condiment. And you also talk about, you also have a use for what is always at the like end cap, as they call them in my H Mart, which is the citron honey
Yuzu-cha.
And it's the tea, which we bought and we'll like make it to tea and stuff. But now I have all these other uses for it thanks to your cookbook, and I'm very grateful for that.
We love it. It's part of, there's a foundational sauce in our first cookbook called jojang, which is a sauce for dipping raw seafood like sashimi into. We love using yuzu-cha on that. But I also like yuzu-cha in like other places where maple syrup can be used as well. And just what it's doing is, instead of it being a simple syrup, a flat, sugary syrup, this adds character with like acidity, and acidity is going to make your food have more complexity, which ultimately is more exciting.
I'm going to say, just interrupt one moment. I'm in the middle of my espresso tonic. I feel like I'm having like, I don't know, a Negroni in the middle of the afternoon. It's really, I feel pretty elegant right now.
I'm happy it's working for you. I think like having tonic water and espresso, and then, but I think you can get those with simple syrup at a lot of places, but having that orange syrup, that I'm glad you picked that one. It's great.
I am too. I now try not to eat it all with my finger. Just a few more things. And one is, I want to talk about your experience with smashed fish.
Yeah.
Because that was one of those recipes that also made me want to run out and get a whole fish, which is not something one traditionally wants to do, for your home cooking.
It's one of these recipes, and I'm glad you're asking me about it, that we thought we needed to include in the book. It illustrates, so the first 2/3 of the book is all based in Korea. So Seoul is part of the story and really the heart of Korean modern cooking. But then we went to Gangwon-do, northeast. We went to Jeolla-do, which is the southwest. But this recipe, we found at Jeju Island, Jeju-do, which is, I would say, a place that most people should go, because it's kind of like the Hawaii of Korea. And not a lot of people talk about it because there's other places in Korea most people go to, but man, Jeju is a really cool place, and we found some really interesting food there. There's a pork broth soup that is really common there. We ate some horse there, which I thought was really fascinating. They have a horse meat culture that many tourists will eat when they go to Jeju. It's part of the culture. I didn't find horse meat to be that interesting. I found it quite lean, but still it's interesting. And I also thought that the seafood there was remarkable. And we were in this small restaurant with our group. We were traveling with some folks, and we found that there was this whole fried like rockfish that came to the table like whole fried, and it was kind of like dotted around the base with this sauce that's gochujang. We had ketchup to it, to be honest, because it's kind of like the vibe of like a kind of like a more rustic restaurant. We really wanted to give it homage.
Yeah.
But the most remarkable thing was when it got to the table, the server put on some plastic gloves, which were actually over some rubber gloves. So they had 2 levels of gloves, and literally smashed the thing. And honestly, when you have whole fish, it can be challenging to pick away the bones in the fish. But when you smash it, it actually it's a little bit of a favor from the server. The server created this smashed fish that allowed us to eat it much easier. It was like we'd never seen it. We're like, this is really cool. This is why we go out in the countryside and see restaurants, and I loved it.
And I love that you shared it with us, because it really isn't that hard to make in the scheme of things. And we get to play with our food.
I don't think so. I think a whole fish, like you can get lots of different fish, like red snapper is very common. You can get rockfish. You obviously, you have to have it cleaned properly at your fishmonger. But you slice it as you would with any like fried fish. You get a big like heavy pot, like cast iron or wherever, and you just like you fry it, and you do multiple sides. And I mean, that's it. It's really like easier than you think. Deep frying at home can be very polarizing. There's like obviously a level of smell, and like there's like, if it's a small space, it can be challenging. But really, ventilate your house. It's so worth it. And then you can smash it.
And the other thing is, I think there are a lot of snobs out there who are like, ketchup. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I remember like visiting Austria with like my father was born in Austria, and we went to visit like his best friend. And I'm like, I am going to learn to make goulash from the master. You know, this man has been making goulash since he popped out of the womb, you know? And I started like, watched him intently, as one's supposed to do when you're like learning to make it at the foot of the people who know it inherently. Yeah. And he chopped up his peppers and he chopped up the meat, and then he goes, where's the ketchup? Hold on. And he goes and he makes this just giant squidgle, and like, the finest paprika, but a giant squeeze ketchup. So
I mean, don't hate on it. I mean, it's really like, as Americans, we love sweet food, and like ketchup is instant. It's basically just putting sugar into your food. It's why we use ketchup in like cocktail sauce, right? I mean, it's like truly a really great way to add a seemingly natural flavor of sugar that's not natural at all.
Oh, I would like to make one quick shift to a recipe that will also bet me I'm really interested in, which is takes us back to the United States and to some innovations happening here, including a fantastic blend, kimchi pimento cheese, or
kimcheese, as you call it. Love this. It's such a fun dish, and it comes from Tori Miller, a friend of ours. He's a fantastic chef in Madison, Wisconsin, behind a restaurant Gray's and L'Etoile, and he's won multiple James Beard Awards. And really, he's the kind of guy that he's a Korean adoptee. And really, he's been on his journey of kind of discovering Korean culture in his restaurants through his food. And we were working on the book, and this was a little bit of a later edition. And I just like texted him. I was like, "Man, Tori, you got it. We got to get you in the book. You've been such a good friend of ours, and you're from the Midwest." And he's like, "Oh yeah, this is it." And boom, he like texted me it over, included an emoji, which I had to keep in the recipe.
He did, yes.
We do have emojis in our book, and that was a production editor request. Can you please put the emoji in the book? And really, I think it's a really great way to marry, America and Korea, Korean pimento cheese.
It's great, and I like that he demands Wisconsin cheese in the making of it.
Truly, I mean, listen. I went to college in Madison, and I would say I demand it as well.
Yeah. All else is garbage. Nothing in this cookbook is garbage. And I have to say, also the innovative banchands that you have.
Yeah.
7-Up.
Yeah, 7-Up in pickles. I think that in the cucumber panchan, I think that is, to me, a really classic Korean grandmother way of making pickle panchan, and it's using like a Sprite or 7-Up in it. And it's actually, we found that in New York, in LA as well, at a restaurant called The Corner Place, where they use 7-Up in their radish kimchi. I love it. It's great.
They sounded like the cucumbers themselves have this sort of crunchy brightness that is so much nicer than what we normally get, and we can make it at home.
It's a quick pickle. And it uses a lot of the stuff you would imagine, like vinegar and salt. But we think that the little bit of the brightness from the 7-Up makes a really fun panchan. And like we have a lot of, I think like we don't have a lot of kimchis, but we do have a persimmon kimchi, which you had alluded to earlier. Our section from Jeollado, which we got to spend time at a temple and cook with the monks, and really for us, we didn't want to go to the celebrity one because there's one that everyone writes about literally in food. And we didn't want to go there. We wanted to go to one that was like normal, frankly. And that was like, because like Buddhism is big in Korea. It's like 10% of the population, but there's also like a culture of not Buddhists. It's not necessarily all Buddhists going to temples. It's like people who want to get away from like technology. And it's like a little bit of that like mindfulness and like restorative nature of going to a temple and spending a couple days there. And you can do it in Korea. It's very affordable. They have a whole infrastructure where you go online and you book a temple stay, and it's like 2 days away. And I highly recommend ending your trip in Korea with a temple stay where you get to go and have some really traditional plant-based cooking. Very simple. I mean, it depends. Some of it is more fancier than others, some of fancy restaurants. And just like, maybe having that be the end of your Korea stay.
That's a brilliant recommendation. The food sounded wonderful too.
Have you been to Korea yourself, or have you been to?
Very sadly, no. I have eaten extensively in the United States, and that is it.
That's all good. I think you should go there. Let's how can we make this happen? Let's do it.
That was exactly my feeling. It has been my feeling. How do we make this happen? I'm glad we made this happen, and I thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I highly recommend, first of all, to get the latest Korea World, a cookbook by Matt Rodbard, and I also recommend getting the first in the series. I'm calling it a series, and I want the third one, and I'm waiting for it now. Koreatown.
I appreciate it.
Get yourself to an H Mart or somewhere and stock up your pantry with a few extra things that you need that
Just
you don't
a couple
otherwise
things.
have.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed our conversation. And where did we meet each other? Can we get to the bottom
I don't know.
of this?
Everybody, we met once. I have this feeling that it was. Do you remember? Did you go to something that like Molly O'Neill had, and like up at her farm sort of thing, and maybe Kim Severson was there, and
not ringing a bell, but it's okay.
I can't remember what it was. Anyway, but we were sitting at a table, and the other people were your friends at the table, and they were people who were just introducing kimchi to the shelves at Whole Foods, I think.
Oh, no way.
They were there with you.
So it was a little Korean crew. Interesting. Well, I mean, I feel like we should hang out again and make it like we can make it more memorable. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah.
That would be great. I would love that.
Yeah. And I appreciate the work you're doing. I really love what you do and bringing multiple levels to food and blending food culture. It's really what we do at Taste. I think that's why we align. And your show, just like when you tackle politics and you talk to people who are outside of traditional foodways, it's really appreciated.
Thank you. It's really, everybody eats, and everybody, I like seeing people who are experts in one thing in their kitchen. Right. and having and seeing them like struggle with all the things that we all struggle with in the kitchen, and just being, and like, I'm on this side of my island, they're on my side, that side of the island. And it's just like having that, as cliched as it sounds, it's like having that conversation across the aisle,
Love
across
it.
the kitchen island.
Yeah. It's well said. Absolutely.
But thank you so much. And here's to your book. Everyone should have it.
Thanks
It'll
for
be the
digging
present
in.
of the year.
Appreciate it. Thanks for digging in.
Thank you for joining us today. You can buy Korea World wherever fine books are sold online or in stores. You should also follow Matt at tastecooking.com. And me, you can follow me on Threads at Marissa Rothkopf Eats, and also on my Substack at marissarothkopf.substack.com. Please leave a review on Apple if you have a moment or two. And I thank you so much and look forward to talking to you again next week.
Wallet feeling extra light after the holidays? Yeah, same. But recovery starts right now with TikTok Slash and Free. Here's how it works. Pick the products you want in TikTok Shop, share the link, and watch the price drop all the way to $0. No tricks, no catch. Just free stuff with free shipping. Download TikTok, search /free, and start slashing today.